Hi kids, today we're going to do a little bit of cooking. One of the things I really love is cooking with my students, and every year I make pumpkin pies with them. Today I'm going to show you how to prepare the pumpkin for the pie. You know, it doesn't have to come in a can. Although if you get it in a can, it's just fine. But your ancestors would have done it this way. So first you need a sugar pumpkin. Make sure you have the right kind of pumpkin. This is one that I grew in my garden, and it grew kind of strangely long and skinny, but I'm sure it's going to be just fine. Then with the help of an adult, you cut off the stem. Okay. And then you can see you've got the flesh of the pumpkin right in there. We're going to cut the pumpkin in half lengthwise and scoop out the seeds. Being very careful to use good knife skills and being safe with the knife. So did you know that there is a lot of chemistry, a lot of science in cooking? As I cut into this pumpkin, I'm thinking to myself, as I cook the pumpkin, what's going to happen? Is the chemical composition of the pumpkin going to change? All right, so I have two halves of a pumpkin. There's one. They both look about like that. I want to just scoop out these seeds, just like you do when you carve a pumpkin at Halloween. Just scoop those seeds right out. You can save them, or you can throw them away, as you prefer. So I want to scoop out the seeds, just like you do when you carve a pumpkin at Halloween time, because the seeds are not what we're going to be eating. It's helpful to have a nice spoon to help you get the seeds out. Now, if you didn't know, the seeds are super yummy roasted, so I'm going to save them and roast them up for a good healthy snack. While I'm getting these seeds out, you know, I was telling you that there's a lot of chemistry involved in cooking. The pumpkin is orange, and that's a clue about what it has. Pumpkins have a lot of chemicals in them, as does all of our food. And pumpkins have something called lutein and something called beta carotene in it. You're probably thinking, beta carotene, wait, that sounds like the word carrot, which is also orange. You would be correct. There's beta carotene in carrots and in pumpkins. And that's what makes them orange. And when I cook the beta carotene, it becomes vitamin A. And when you eat beta carotene and lutein, your body converts that to vitamin A. And the vitamin A is so good for many parts of your body, including your immune system, which helps you fight off diseases, and your eyes. All right, so you can see I've got that pretty well hollowed out. I'm going to place them, when they're hollowed out, I'm going to place them face down on my baking sheet. Now, I have lined my baking sheet with something called a Silpat, which means it won't stick. You can use parchment paper, it does the same thing. If you don't have either of those things, no worries, just spray it with a little olive oil or some other kind of oil so that they don't stick. All right, I've got my pumpkin hollowed out. I've cleaned out the seeds. Got a nice bit of seeds to go through. I got to clean out the pulp and then I'll roast those later. Now I'm going to roast my pumpkin. Some people boil a pumpkin and that works just fine as well. I'm going to roast it at a low temperature, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 40 minutes. And we'll check in on it as it cooks. So we are halfway through our 40 minutes. We're going to check and see how our pumpkin's doing. I can smell it. It's starting to cook. So when I flip it over, you can see it's very hot, it's 325 degrees, and it is starting to soften. If I poke this fork in, it goes in, but it's still, maybe you can hear, it's still a little tough. So we're halfway through. It's looking beautiful. This is what we want it to look like. Let's give it another 20 minutes and we'll check in again. So our pumpkin is done. As you can see, it is nice and cooked, and it just peels right off. And it's the flesh is ready to process, so we can do the next step in our pumpkin pie. So that I cooked it for 40 minutes at 325. I actually pulled it out a few minutes ago so that it could have a little time to cool. And now I'm just going to scrape all of this off. If you've ever eaten an acorn squash or some other kind of squash, pumpkin is a close cousin. This is exactly, it's very similar to that. So it's just kind of a nice little mush, and you just can pull it out. Now it's actually pretty good to eat on its own, just like this, similar to a squash. You could eat it, right? A little butter, a little cinnamon, a little sugar. It'd be super yummy. So go ahead and you just scrape as much of it as you can out. Now the peel has lots of nitrogen in it. So if you have a compost pile, you can throw this right in there. Make sure you have something in there that's got carbon in it, like wood chips or something. It'll break it down. The nitrogen is super good for your garden. So as I cooked this, what was happening was the heat was causing the cells to rupture or break. And then air can rush into the pockets that are left when the cells rupture. And that actually makes the flesh tender, like this. It's much softer, much more tender. It's even a little stringy, as you can see. That is a physical change. No new substances are produced, so it's not a chemical change, it's a physical change. It's a change of one object being changed in, essentially cut. We're essentially cutting this. And now we're going to continue the physical change. We're going to cut it some more. If you have a good old-fashioned potato masher, you're going to mash this pumpkin. And as I mash, you can see lots of juice. The water is being released from the pumpkin. Now again, that water was already there. This is not a chemical change. Nothing is being changed excepting the size of the cells. We're essentially cutting them over and over and over, over and over and over. We're cutting them until we have quite a puree. You can also use an immersion blender like this. You can see when I plug it in, that's a blade that will spin around, and it's going to cut that even more. We're cutting and cutting and cutting. It's a physical change because basically the pieces of pumpkin are just getting smaller. As you can see, the pumpkin is very, very pureed. Very good. A little butter, a little cinnamon and sugar, and it's going to be fabulous. You can also use it for pies. We'll do pies next time. See you later.